Good evening. At least for me, it is. It's around 7:15 p.m. Central Daylight Time. Let's see. It is Sunday, Easter Sunday, April 5th, 2026, and I'm back from the Space Center. And I guess what I'm thinking is, I'm probably not going to watch this from end to end, but yes, we are watching this all day. Pardon me. I'm trying to kind of scarf down some dinner here. My understanding is that the outbound trajectory correction maneuver is planned for about 3 hours from now, maybe a little bit less than 3 hours from now. So what I thought I would do is watch along with you guys, and at least for the next 3 hours, well, I probably shouldn't say that, for about the next 3 hours, because I need to, there were not as many mid-morning slots for going over to the science mission observation room back on the Space Center. So I'm going to need to be there bright and early tomorrow morning. So tomorrow was going to be a long day anyway, but I think I don't believe we are expecting any briefings. No, let's one moment. I need to pick up. You're trying to pick up the window. Well, I'll leave it here while we are waiting for, I guess, live downlink. But I'm not sure if there's going to be anything directly for the media tomorrow at the Space Center, and so probably going to be just covering the lunar flyby tomorrow from here, and we will have pretty much the same types of things to see. And if you were watching the news conference that just ended, well, I guess a little bit more than a half hour ago or something like that, they did post some of the events and the timings tomorrow in Eastern time. So I'll take a look and see exactly where we are.
Johnson Space Center in Houston,
Sounds
Texas.
like
You're
PAO is coming
looking
up.
at a visualization of Orion and its current configuration as it flies toward the moon. We are now just 48,722 miles away from the moon and 226,700 miles away from
Maybe
Earth.
I am not getting the...
You can track Artemis and track Orion for yourself at any time by visiting nasa.gov/trackartemis.
Well, that's the problem. Oops.
Tomorrow is a big day for the mission, as we will have the lunar flyby with about 6 hours for the crew to be taking photos, making observations and annotations of what they see as they pass the moon. The first humans to do so in over 50 years.
I hope you all could hear that. I had the speakers muted here, so I'm trying to
we'll be live
follow
for
along.
it all, so we look forward to you joining us. One of those milestones that we'll see is them surpassing the greatest distance ever achieved by humans. That was set by the Apollo 13 crew. We expect that to occur in 17 hours and 38 minutes, so don't miss it.
So I'm at least hoping to hang around until the OTC burn. We got an update. We actually got some interesting updates about the optical comm system. So I wasn't aware. I'll have to go back and listen to.
We are currently in a forward link LOS, or loss of signal, with the crew. These are tracked as we fly this mission. We are using the Deep Space Network at this time. They are far enough away from the Earth that we need to rely on this network rather than our usual tracking data relay satellite systems that you see us use with the International Space Station. But we are aware and track all of these these moments when we are loss of signal with the crew. However, we still have data from them. So if they needed to, they could call down to us here in Mission Control.
Once again, this is not live video. This is a visualization, as it says over on the left. So there's.
And we expect to get that forward link acquisition of signal back in about 37 minutes.
Right around, it sounds like top of the hour. I wonder if that means we're going to be out of...
The crew is currently in their midday meal. They previously executed the Orion Crew Survival System demonstration. This involved all crew members getting in those orange suits you saw them in during the launch. This is also what they'll wear during their return to Earth. Those suits could help them survive a depressurization event in the event that were to occur on the spacecraft. Of course, today was just a test, but that would give them a breathing environment for about 6 days. At 10:03 p.m. Central Time, we are expecting the outbound trajectory correction burn 3. We did cancel the first of these 2 trajectory correction burns. These are small maneuvers using the reaction control system thrusters on the spacecraft that help us fine-tune our trajectory around the moon and on our way back home to Earth. The team will execute the OTC-3 burn tonight. We expect that to be a 10.1 foot per second burn.
That sounds like a slight update from what Rick was briefing a little bit more than an hour ago. But same order of magnitude. So 9.9 feet per second or 10.1 feet per second. He was talking about a duration of about 14 seconds, and they were, instead of using the RCS thrusters, they're going to use the, well, he said, that they're going to use the aux thrusters, which are these 4 pairs of auxiliary thrusters that are aft facing. And of course, the RCS thrusters, we could see pulses of those as they're maintaining the burn attitude, but it is still a very short burn. But it's one of the few burns that we're going to see for the rest of the mission. And so, and since it's around 10 p.m., it's about 2.5 hours from now, I'm hoping that I can hang around for that. So earlier, I think right around when I was getting started, Weird Rain asked about the shape being vaguely the same, and I think Stephen in the it basically mimics the outer mold line of the Apollo command module. So it has the same outside shape. It's just that it's been upscaled, so to speak. So it has it's bigger. It has a wider diameter than the command module, and so that allows 4 astronauts to fly on Orion versus 3 on Apollo. So it is actually the same shape, and they chose to do that because that allowed them to leverage a lot of the wind tunnel testing that they did back in the Apollo era. Let's see. I was going to go through a couple of notes from the briefing that occurred a little while ago. I think that was one of the main updates. Of course, if you've been watching the live coverage all day, then you've seen the suit up demo with the Orion crew survival suits. But what was interesting was he clarified that Rick Henfling, he's the entry flight director, but as he also noted in the briefing, he's been taking multiple orbit 3 shifts, and that's the overnight planning team. And he provided some additional details about the optical communication system. So I'll have to go. I asked him after the briefing. He mentioned receiving stations in California, White Sands, and Australia, and that actually starts to become more. In theory, that would enable or get closer to enabling not worldwide coverage, but moving in that direction. So that is interesting, and that would be something that they're probably going to need from either government provider or commercial provider is in order to do high speed data, both uplink and downlink. And so he mentioned I'll have to go back and hear what he said. He gave me the name of the site in California. It's not Goldstone, but he wasn't sure where it was exactly. He just knew the name. So I have to go back and fetch that and look it up. It's probably not that difficult to do. Let's see. But I think a lot, again, just mostly filling in a few details. But if you've been watching the live coverage today, then you've seen a lot of the things that they briefed in the briefing. It's an opportunity most every day to it gives us an additional opportunity to just again ask for clarifications, ask for some additional details, and Dr. Kelsey Young she also provided some additional details about what they're going to be doing tomorrow, but it's still going to be something to watch tomorrow. And she said she's going to be on console for a lot of the day tomorrow in the flight control room, and so we may hear her on the Orion to Earth communications. It certainly sounded like that would be the case. So we'll be watching and listening. And she did give us a little bit of an idea about what we would see and hear tomorrow. Pardon me. Primarily, we'll be seeing video from those solar array wingtip cameras again, but we'll also be hearing the crew from time to time. They'll be busy, but Dr. Young did say that there would be periods of time where the crew would brief to the ground, and then that would give the ground some ability to interact with the crew during the observations. And then she also noted that there would be a 1 hour break, essentially, or on the order of a 1 hour break. And in fact, Orion will go back to tail to sun attitude during that short break, and then they'll resume. And I think that break is after the main observations of the moon, because there will be an eclipse after that, and of course that means that the side of the moon facing the spacecraft at that point will not be illuminated. So they will shift their focus from observations of the moon to this collecting information during the eclipse. And again, it's not the same as a typical solar eclipse that we see here on Earth. The apparent size of the moon will be much greater than the apparent size of the sun in the sky for the crew. So, but they will be able to see the corona when the sun essentially sets on one side of the moon, and then when it rises on the other side. So we have probably about, it sounds like if they're waiting to get forward link back around the top of the hour, so we have about a half hour where we're probably not going to see, all we're going to see is this. Again, this is graphics that are animated by real-time data. So not just the displays in the lower right, but also they're using real-time data to display what the current attitude of the spacecraft. Now, again, if they're actually out of communications with, if they're loss of signal or loss of downlink, then this they may not have any data to drive this display. So if this is really the attitude they're in, then that would put them out of tail to sun. And so if they don't currently have capability to downlink video, then we won't be seeing video from either from the outside cameras on the solar array wing tips or from the inside cameras until they get that communications back. At least at that point, then they don't have, the crew, the ground and the flight control team coordinates with the crew when the cameras are going to be on. But the outside cameras in general can show any one of those, or in some cases they can do a double screen, but they typically are only showing one solar array wing camera view at a time. And they did say when they were going to cross, it will be a couple of hours after, more than a couple, let's see, no, I guess it would be. So the OTC3 burn is, I believe the public affairs commentator said that was going to be around 10:03 p.m. I think she said Central. So that's where we are, or that's where I am too, in the Central time zone at the moment. But Rick Henfling in the briefing said that Orion will cross into the lunar sphere of influence around, and he used Eastern time, so 12:40 a.m. Eastern, so overnight tonight. That would be 11:40 p.m. Central. That would be not quite 2 hours, more like an hour and a half after the OTC burn, if I have the time zones correct. But I'm probably going to call it a stream somewhere around sometime after the OTC burn, because then I have to get up and be at the Space Center around I have to be there before 6:45 a.m. tomorrow. So, and then we will get an opportunity to see what's going on. I'm not sure there will be any or there will be a lot of activity in the science mission operations room, but it gives us an opportunity to take some, similar to the observation room above the Orion flight control room in another building inside the Johnson Space Center grounds. It just gives us an opportunity to document what the room looks like, and of course it'll be in high use tomorrow, in addition to the science evaluation room. I think I don't know if we're going to see both of them. There is a, let me see if I have the presentation that the science team made back in September, and one of the presentation slides had so let me see if I can fish around for that. I may have to sneaker net it over, but that is doable. All right. Stand by. I need to grab something here, so I'm gonna go off. I'll mute for a moment. Actually, well, not actually, but that just is AC Gypsy. The question: when will the velocity begin to increase again? It does actually bring up an interesting question, which is the velocity that they're showing right now. I believe is Earth relative velocity, but in miles per hour, of course. But I'm not sure what's going to happen when Orion transitions into the lunar sphere of influence, whether they might change the display to lunar relative velocity. It is they could do that. It's possible. I'm vaguely remembering sort of listening to recordings of Apollo public affairs commentary back then that they did. Pardon me, that they would use lunar relative velocity once the Apollo spacecraft crossed into the lunar sphere of influence. So we'll see. It's a good question, but I would imagine we will find out pretty soon, within the next handful of hours, because I believe it is kind of interesting. What they said was that the slowest Earth relative speed that they would see would be essentially at closest approach to the moon, where the velocity would be on the order of 1,000 miles per hour. And so you can see there's still there's a little ways to go, so to speak. But again, that's Earth relative, so their pictures, and there were some good slides that were presentation slides during the briefing today, but in this okay, but let's but let me bring up the let me first bring up the PDF. So this is a shot, I believe that's Dr. Young at the science console position. And this is in the Orion flight control room, the white flight control room in building 30. And that's the as I believe saying yesterday, or maybe it was the day before, things kind of blur together. That's the booster position during launch, but of course that's the last ascent shift of the mission, and so the booster and the control positions aren't going to be serving on any other shifts, and so the science console operator and console takes over that position for the rest of the mission. I'm not sure what happens for the entry, but we've seen a science officer, science console operator on console when we were over there the other day. And so she said she would be on there, and there are other if you saw some of the interviews this morning during the overnight shift, the public affairs officer on the overnight shift interviewed the science officer on the overnight shift. So there will be some overlap between the orbit 3, which is the overnight planning shift, into orbit 1 and then orbit 2. And so we will be able to tell tomorrow, although the broadcast is going to be focused on what we're seeing from Orion, but we should get views from inside the flight control room from time to time. And then, so that's the as it says up in the upper left, the white, and of course abbreviated, white flight control room. And then this is the SIR, the science evaluation room. We got to go in there on but back in September, when they did a series of pre-flight events, I guess. There were a couple of news conferences. And then this is the science mission. I should probably grab that piece of paper. But this is the room that we're going to go that we're going to get a chance to take a peek into. I'm not sure if we're going to go inside or if there's a place we can view it from outside, but this is what I'm going to try and get a chance to see tomorrow morning. So right now they have a temporary but expected loss of forward link to the spacecraft. They're supposed to get that back in about 15 minutes, but it sounds like everything has been going well. There were some follow-up questions today about things like the wastewater line that they were having issues with, that I guess burning smell that they reported. I guess it was yesterday, and but those are things that the engineering teams will work offline while the crew focuses on the lunar flyby and the science observations tomorrow. And it didn't sound like any of those were had any impact on the mission and the mission plan in particular. So things still seem to be going well on the mission. It's the part of the reason that they didn't load more on the plate of this mission is because they wanted this is a shakedown mission for the all-up crewed Orion spacecraft. And so some of these systems that we're talking about, like the toilet and the wastewater dump system, are new to the Artemis II vehicle versus from Artemis 1. So let me go back and and that was something that I thought was good to note. I think it was yesterday. So somebody was talking about, or somebody was asking yesterday about the caution and warning system on the spacecraft, and that they're still they're getting a lot of warning messages because of different set points for different systems, and that was one of those things that they pointed out was because this is a crewed system. This is the first flight of a caution and warning system. They didn't need one and didn't have one on Artemis 1 because there was nobody inside the spacecraft that would be able to see that and act on it. So that's one of the major objectives of the mission, which is kind of the Apollo 7 mission that was flown. In that case, that mission was flown as about if I recall correctly, it was something like it was I think 11 days, but that was in Earth orbit. In this case, they're doing a lunar flyby, but it's of the same mission duration, approximately week and a half. Orion is spec'd to fly to support 4 crew for twice that. Actually, this is only really a 9-day duration mission, 9 days and maybe a couple of hours. So really, Orion can do more than double that. It's supposed to be able to support 4 crew for 21 days. But this is the first time that they're flying, and so they're getting a lot
This
of
is Artemis Mission Control here at Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas.
Testing.
MET, 4 days, 1 hour and 52 minutes into the flight of Artemis II.
Yes, shuttle had its own toilet with its own idiosyncrasies. So, yes, Stephen White was asking that in the
Correction,
chat.
we are 4 days, 2 hours and 14 minutes into the flight of Artemis II. We are in a forward link LOS, meaning we are out of communication with the crew from the ground side. These are tracked, and the team monitors them and make sure to call up anything to the crew just before we go into them and let them know that we won't be able to communicate with them for this time period. We expect to regain communications with them in under 10 minutes.
I think they actually, I think they put up numbers. I guess it's possible they will have to, pardon me, a little bit of yawning. It's possible that they will have to tweak those numbers again after this trajectory correction burn, but they're, certainly within reason. Let me see if I can cheat backwards to the briefing time while we're waiting to regain communications. I think that's too far, although it seems like it was at the very end of the. Yeah. I can't quite get it.
Today, and you can follow the latest.
So I'll freeze it there for a moment. No, well, of course they do the closest approach is relative to the moon. But those are the numbers in statute miles that they put up. There was also a brief flash of another graphic in there. I wonder if I can find it, but I didn't. Everybody sort of scooted before. Let me see if I can find it. But this was interesting too. The targeting plan. So this is this was one of the
targets that listed vertically in the top left of the screen. Those are the targets in the timelined order we're asking them to image them in, and they're in a specific order because ultimately.
I wasn't going to run the whole briefing out, but I'm gonna see if I can find. But actually, let's see.
These targets left side.
There was a quick.
Geographic.
This
Go to the next
Dr.
picture. Room.
Talking about.
So I just want this of they're at the Johnson's and near the out the window is actually observing the illuminated array. So if you of the period observing it.
This is this video, 1 minute video. This is this video is out on images.nasa.gov too.
And they'll also be able to take pictures.
Yeah. This they did not. But you can see the parasynthion that Walt or our Walt is referring to in chat, again relative to. So this is still well before they get there, 5 hours. But this would be an interesting. I think this is probably from the. Dr. Young was talking about the. Let me see if his name is in this presentation. So I'll go ahead and take this back to live. But that flashed up on the screen.
That includes Earth.
That flashed up on the screen, and I didn't get a chance to follow up on it after the. But maybe we'll see something like that. I think that probably was more for the, again, to help the crew. It was a crew training aid, but still helps for trying to kind of visualize what they're going to be, what they could possibly be looking at. Let's see. Is it Dr. Wright? Let me see if I can find it in the. He's the one I believe. Well, let me see if I can find it. Yeah. I think it's Dr. Ernie Wright with yeah. So this, you can see this slide in the presentation, but again, this was for a different, this was for another hypothetical. Let me pull it up. But this actually to me would be cool with all the numbers, and they showed this. Let me bring it up. They showed us an animation. I'll wipe those for a minute. They showed us this as an animation, and again, so this would have been for a hypothetical lunar approach, and again, again, if you remember your Artemis II launch date history, so they were looking at way back when, probably around the time of Artemis I, they were hoping to fly in that Artemis I plus 2 years time frame. So this is for a this is for a hypothetical Artemis II lunar flyby on November 29th, 2024. But it does have some of that information, and it just has the credit that to Ernie Wright. And I imagine that if I go, let me put the live shot back up. Actually, just well, I can do that later. Let me see if I can bring up the updated visualization that they posted. I don't know if they posted it today or if they posted it and I just have to remember to I just have to remember to goose the live shot. See, they keep posting more videos. I wonder if this video is of the solar array deploy. At any rate, I'll have to come back to that later. They keep posting more, which is cool, but it's just hard to keep up with all this. I hope it all stays available. I think this is it here. Yes. But this has the credit here, so I just wanted to cross-check. Right, so here's the credit here. So Ernie Wright. So let me so down here, he's and Dr. Young was talking about him, noted him in the news conference that he's been producing all of these really wonderful visualizations of what it'll look like. In this case, this visualization speeds up the timeline by a lot, but Dr. Young was saying in the news conference that he also produced something that was more real time. Again, just it's predictive. Well, that's not the right word. It's what it may look like. Here we go.
Integrity Houston after the LOS. How do you hear?
But speaking of visualizations,
Integrity, we have you the same. Please execute procedure 2.1.0, cabin leak suspected. We need to get the cabin pressure control to maintenance. This will perform a cabin O2 introduction. Good words.
Well, interestingly, we can't hear them, at least on the live stream right now. We can hear Capcom Jenny Gibbons make the calls she's making up to the crew. Well, maybe they'll get that fixed.
No, it does not. Cabin pressure is stable, but we need you to perform this procedure to get cabin pressure control to maintenance. Copy.
So it sounds like this is just a configuration they need to configure it this way. And I guess this probably gives the ground control.
We're here for whatever you need.
I wonder if, out of curiosity, we're hearing it on the other live stream.
Let's perform step 3 of this procedure. Cabin leak suspected. Step 3.
We don't read it that way.
Let's perform step 3 of this procedure.
That was
cabin
not...
leak suspected. Step 3.
So we're not hearing them over there either. But they can obviously hear them in the flight control room.
Good words.
So they're using that procedure from
Affirm.
They're using that procedure from that. It's the handiest place for the sequence of steps that they want them to perform. But she did say in the conversations, of course, we're hearing just the one. We're hearing the calls up from Earth to Orion, but not Orion to Earth yet. But I believe she said in there that they're not seeing an issue with the cabin pressure. They're just trying to get the system configured the way they want it.
Copy. That's a good config. Thank you, Reed. All right, Integrity crew, I am now ready to pass you big picture words on what happened.
Okay. Well, we're going to find out now. There may have been some urgency to get it reconfigured that way. I imagine that they can, that the JSC newsroom can hear this just like we can hear it. Because like right now, I'm not hearing.
This is Artemis Mission Control at Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. We have reestablished communications with the crew. We did go into an LOS on our forward link. That was a planned and tracked LOS. And then we also...
So I can hear on her headset, I can hear the crew calling down, but we can't hear it on the...
We experienced an LOS on the return link, the link where the crew is able to communicate with us. We have since done a string swap, sent that up, and we have communication with the crew that we're working to get back into the broadcast.
Okay, so that's why she's explaining that. Okay.
The crew also received a cabin leak.
Into the LOS is that when you went to RADHAB in the suit drying procedure, we went to a suit state with a lower cabin fan speed. This caused a little shift in the outlet pressure of the cabin fan where that pressure sensor is, and it registered a pressure change. So we got that warning, cabin leak suspected, in alarm. This moded the cabin pressure mode to idle, which meant that we stopped O2 introduction into the cabin. We needed to mode back to maintenance to regain O2 introduction back into the cabin.
Okay, that's kind of important. But I would imagine that the crew...
Copy. And I see what you see about the procedure. We just wanted to make sure we called you into that. Step 3 was the important part there. Second of all, we had an unexpected return link LOS when we transitioned to DSN Madrid. We had good luck, but we weren't getting any data. When we got forward link, in our INCO sent a command for a string swap, which was successful. We are now on string 1 for S-band.
Yeah, the crew's fine. The crew would be able to, I would imagine the crew would be able to call up.
Okay, and we are still looking at what happened with S-band string 2. We don't know yet, and that's all I have for you. Thanks, guys.
The crew should be able to call up their, partial pressure O2 in the cabin. So, but what it sounded like was that because of that sequence of events, the system stopped adding O2 to the atmosphere. But of course, there's already O2
Sounds great.
in the atmosphere.
Thank you, Reed.
So yeah, the crew's fine. It's just that, that's not necessarily a configuration you want to stay in for an extended period of time.
Again, we are working on getting the crew audio back into the broadcast, but you heard Capcom Jenny Gibbons, CSA astronaut and Artemis II backup, communicating with the crew some of our recent changes on the spacecraft. As we went into the LOS with the crew, that loss of signal, which we were expecting, we also noticed a cabin fan change, which caused a cabin leak suspect warning. There was no cabin leak. We needed to mode back to a maintenance option and reintroduce oxygen into the cabin. You also heard Gibbons explain that when we transitioned on the Deep Space Network to the Madrid site, that we ended up losing the crew's communications as well, that we had a good lock on the spacecraft, but we just weren't receiving their data. Our INCO flight controller conducted a string swap to regain that data. We now have good data and communications back with the crew.
So the cabin atmosphere would already have a significant amount of oxygen in it.
You'll also be noticing more people filtering into the flight control room. The Orbit 1 team is handing over to the Orbit 2 team.
We'd probably have to go back. Actually, that's why that's why Artemis II is kind of a mixed. It's a mixture of several missions, but it is kind of a mixture of one of those missions also being Apollo 7, because again, the first crewed flight of the Apollo spacecraft was Apollo 7, but they did their shakedown mission in low Earth orbit. So it would actually be, there were certainly some well-known
on your screen, you can see Capcom Jenny Gibbons
incidents during
handing
Apollo
over
7.
the console to Mark Reagan. That's the voice you'll hear throughout the Orbit 2 shift with the crew. One of the major milestones coming up for tonight will be the OTC-3 burn. That's Outbound Trajectory Correction 3. We execute these small burns using the reaction control system thrusters on the spacecraft to help us refine our trajectory as we begin to fly around the moon tomorrow and come home, a splashdown in the Pacific on Flight Day 10. While we were in that LOS with the crew, they were in their midday meal, and some of the options they had today include chicken noodle soup, chicken with peanut sauce, spicy green beans, mashed potatoes, roasted turkey, rice, tomatoes and artichokes, spaghetti with meat sauce, vegetable casserole, sweet and savory kale, shrimp curry with rice, and a personal favorite, macaroni and cheese. I cannot omit that there was also a cosmic brownie as a dessert option.
Thanks Frank V 7068 for the super chat. It's funny, we were talking before they restored communications about the caution and warning system, and so I would imagine if they had persisted in this odd configuration where the system was not adding O2 into the cabin atmosphere, that the caution and warning system would have eventually warned the crew when there would be a partial pressure of O2 would drop below whatever their lower limit is. And so it would just be one of those things where I would imagine that there's certainly a procedure on board that they could have used to do this, but this is just one of those things where, the folks in chat were saying when they were listening to the communications that they looked maybe not, Walt was saying they looked nervous. Maybe something on that scale. I understand what you're saying in terms of, I think there was a sense of urgency that they did want to get the spacecraft in a better configuration. And of course, this is being the first flight. They always worry about what's the next worst failure. So you want to get the spacecraft in a good configuration so that in those what if scenarios, so what if something happened right now that took that took everybody's attention away from this. So it's you want to be in a more stable, favorable configuration. So this is definitely a better configuration for them to be in. But I also would imagine that, again, the spacecraft and the crew, the spacecraft would have warned the crew at some point, and the crew would have a procedure on board. Let's say for whatever reason they had not reestablished communications. The crew's trained to be able to deal with that situation at some point if they needed to. So Maurice in chat is saying they really want to prevent a low oxygen warning, which might be quite scary for the crew. I imagine that the crew is well trained on on contingencies like that. So as I say, they would know how to deal with that, and they probably they've probably done simulations of cases like that, so that the crew, again, you think about aircraft incidents, and they talk about memory actions, things that you need to know how to do without having to go grab a quick reference guide, or again, go to your procedures. I don't know that this necessarily would be one of those, but the crew would certainly know how to go to their procedures manual and work that checklist if they needed to. But in this case, it sounds like the ground saw this early, and they just, it's not a good configuration to be in. So it's like you don't necessarily want it. You don't want it to get more confusing. And so it's like, let's just fix this. So Drive Ideas Dad, thank you for becoming a member of the channel. Jay Pierce noting that the press briefing said they'd be using the auxiliary thrusters for the OTC burn coming up. I don't recall. I was probably thinking more about the oxygen configuration, the Eclipse configuration that they're talking about. So I must have missed whether they said that. Pardon me, I get something went down the wrong pipe. I'm sort of doing a little bit of dinner on the side here. I probably should have muted when I was doing that, but anyway, we will. Actually, I believe it was Rick Henfling, the flight director, who was serving as kind of the mission operations directorate representative at the briefing today. If they read up the burn pad to the crew as opposed to just texting it to them, so to speak, we might get that information before the burn, but actually we'll be kind of interested. I don't know if we would. We won't be able to. I don't think we will be able to see the. We might see the burn on video. I don't know, but that actually would be one of the cases where the visualization actually would be useful, because that is a pretty high fidelity representation of thruster usage. And so as I was talking about, I believe in the previous live stream at the beginning of the day, that perigee raise burn that was done about 12 hours after launch was done on the aux engines, and you could see that in the telemetry. That data is used to drive some of the graphics in that visualization. Yeah, so Jay Pierce is talking about, it says, I'm just curious which thrusters they'll use. There are not hard and fast thresholds in terms of delta V for where you would pick RCS versus aux versus ohms. But I don't know that they're necessarily hard and fast. And so, in fact, in a contingency case, you might downmode from the aux thrusters to the RCS. And then you can also do that from the ohms engine to the aux engines. So they had been talking about using the RCS thrusters to do the burn prior to this. And if they had done one of the two optional burns the last couple of days, then they may have done those as RCS burns. So we'll just have to see when we get there in better part of an hour and a half. And so Maurice is asking, do all the thrusters share the same fuel tanks? As noted in chat also, yes, that's true. I wonder if I have a graphic for that. Actually might. It's sort of a graphic of the naked propulsion system, courtesy of an old Airbus. Let me see if I can find it. I just got to hopefully have the credit on it just to make it obvious that it's courtesy of. It's not a particularly high res. That is, yeah. Well, yes, actually that will work in theory.
Integrity Houston, no action on the enabled prop cautions on the board.
Integrity copies. Thanks.
All right, there you go. Now we've got the return link, the return on the Orion to Earth comms back, so we can hear the crew again. I believe that was Christina Cook responding. Right, so this is again, like I said, euphemistically an Airbus graphic of the propellant system, propulsion system, because of course it also has the engines. So, and this includes the helium tanks again, which are used to pressurize to keep the tanks pressurized. Does it? I'm trying to, again, I'm guessing, I should probably know this, but I'm guessing that the red tanks are the fuel tank. Let's see, does it say here? I don't think it does. The red tanks are the fuel tanks and the blue tanks are the oxidizer tanks. And in this case, we're talking about the hypergolics. So the fuel is monomethylhydrazine. The oxidizer is nitrogen tetroxide, although now I believe they call it mixed oxides of nitrogen.
Integrity Houston, for the enabled caution, these prop cautions are because we are manually pressurizing that branch for upcoming OTC3. We're taking a closer look at them. No action for you.
Integrity copies. Thanks.
Yeah, it sounds like they're using this opportunity to evaluate those helium pressurization legs in the system, And so they were only, there was, the issue was only on the oxidizer side. So again, the mixed oxides of nitrogen, MON3. And so and again, as they were saying yesterday, I think.
This is Artemis Mission Control at Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. We are now 4 days, 2 hours, and 51 minutes into the flight of Artemis II. Our crew today woke up at 11:05 a.m. Central Time. They stepped into their post-sleep period, and notably, Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen received his gold astronaut pin, meaning he is now a flown astronaut. The first half of the crew's day has been spent in the Ox Suit demo. That stands for Orion Crew Survival System Suit. During that time, the crew all got into their orange suits that you saw during launch day and that they will wear again on the return day. The crew can ingress these suits if there were to be a depressurization event in the spacecraft. Obviously, that is not what we were expecting or doing today. This was only a test for the crew to see how it would be to put on their spacesuits in that sort of environment. 2 of the crew were instructed to get into their suits rapidly. The other 2 crew members were instructed to get into their suits at a regular pace. After that, we had 2 of our crew members ingress or get into their seats as if they were preparing for return. We also pressurized the suits. Again, this is a flight test, and every day is an opportunity to test a different system aboard the spacecraft. Coming up this evening, we have the OTC 3 burn. That is the outbound trajectory 3 burn, and we'll continue to refine our path around the moon and back home. Orion is now 46,395 miles away from the moon, 228,329 miles away from Earth. That number continuing to increase while our distance from the moon continues to decrease, scheduling with our lunar flyby scheduled for tomorrow. With Orbit 1 handover here in Mission Control, being handed over to the Orbit 2 team, that'll also do it for us, or for me, here in Mission Control Houston. I will be handing over the Public Affairs Console to my friend and colleague Anna Schneider. We will continue our 24/7 coverage on NASA's YouTube all the way until the crew is splashed down and safely recovered. So don't go anywhere. Anna will be joining you shortly.
Tom, pardon me, Tom was asking earlier whether or not the crew will get photos of the Apollo 12 and Apollo 14 landing sites tomorrow. I think there was another question in the briefing about the 10 science objectives and the priorities, and so I think it remains to be seen. We don't know what those are exactly, and so if they have time, perhaps they will. I mean, Dr. Young said that they are looking at past and future landing sites as targets. So it's it may be a target of opportunity. I don't know how high a priority it is. Well, they're not. They won't. They will. They will. If they were to image those sites, they would be imaging them at a very not low res, but it would be a very broad scale image of that. They wouldn't be trying to resolve. They wouldn't be trying to resolve the equipment at the sites, for instance. That's something that the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter is definitely better suited to do, and even then, it's the resolution is good, but I think the best views of that equipment were back in 1969 and then the early 70s, before the crew left in most cases, or as the crew left for the last 3 landings. The rover was parked far enough away to see the liftoff. So, but those pictures from LRO were really good, and you can see the equipment, you can see the rover tracks for those missions that had a rover. I believe actually you can even see some of the tracks from the surface crews on those missions too. And like on Apollo 14, they had a was it a cart, I think, and something like that. So those were decent resolution images. So yeah, I think the idea would just be to get some imagery of those sites on a broad scale. It is interesting that, it seems like there are more orbiters around Mars than around the moon right now. Yeah, and so as the person in chat saying, I don't think they have a big enough lens to make out to resolve anything that small, and that's I agree, and I also don't think I don't think that's not an objective tomorrow. It's really just to image the sites again on a broad scale. Again, something that LRO can do also, but it's just the idea of the crew is there tomorrow. They'll be able to see those sites again on a broad scale. So they may, if they get a chance to take imagery of it, we would hopefully if they get a chance to take images of it, and then hopefully we'll get to see those images. But yeah, they're not trying to resolve anything down to that level of detail. When the crew transport is orbiting the moon, perhaps at low lunar orbit, in a low lunar orbit, then maybe if you're able to take if you're able to take some newer equipment. I think LRO is going on a couple of decades old now, or is it just 1 decade? But it's relatively old. But that's really where you would want to be looking at taking imagery of, if you wanted to take imagery of those sites. Looks like it's raining again here. But it also made another reason that we're not perhaps seeing inside the crew cabin right now is they may still be in a little bit of a break. And this is the middle of their day, and so they may be either be in the middle of or finishing their lunch break, so to speak.
Houston Integrity on 1 for lunar viewing.
Go ahead, Reed, for lunar view. And for your info, you came down on 2.
All right, Jenny. The moon is decidedly large out the window today. We can see all of Apollo, all of Oriental, annular ring. We can see, I'm 99% sure, Ohm, see Pirazo very easily, and just getting over. Can't quite pick up Vavilov yet, but that far side that is right on the limb is extremely mountainous. Try to get some pictures, but it's a high grazing angle. But it's pretty awesome to just look out and see all of these sites, and it's bright, but very visible with the naked eye. Still primarily seeing whites, grays. Maybe I can convince myself on the far side there's some just hues of brown, very light, very, very faint. But it's a great view. It's beautiful. And on the near side, Aristarchus is by far the most prominent feature. It is really just glowing bright right now.
That's beautiful, Reed. Thanks for bringing us all up there with you.
And for the science team, Pirazo and Aristarchus have the same albedo level right now. They're the same level of brightness. And then looking down, Copernicus is just a little bit dimmer, but it's close.
Science is loving it, as expected. Thanks, Reed. While I'm talking to you guys, I have a topic on burn monitor for Jeremy.
He'll call you back in about 5 minutes.
Sounds good, no rush.
Yeah, that was interesting. Interesting observations from the commander, Reed Weissman. Yeah, I was lucky enough. I did not see the total solar eclipse a couple of years ago, but I did get a chance to see the one in 2017, and that was.
And Houston Integrity, just one other observation. Looking at the Terminator, it's almost a full moon from this perspective, but we got the Terminator on the western edge of the moon, about 1 Oriental diameter from Oriental, and just with our plain eyes, you can really start to see topography. There is elevation on the moon, not just variation in color, and that already makes the moon look wildly different.
You have a lot of people looking forward to tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Yeah, there's a question in here from Brady.
This is Artemis Mission Control in Houston, Texas.
Stand by.
The Orbit 2 team of flight controllers has recently come on console, and they are being led by Flight Director Diane Daly. And they have handed over from the Orbit 1 team of flight controllers, and we just heard some communication down from the crew, specifically NASA astronaut Reed Wiseman and Victor Glover, as they were making some observations of the moon as they continued to close in on their distance between the Orion spacecraft and the moon. Currently, they are about 45,000 miles from the moon, again making some observations about the basins and craters that they are seeing as they continue to close that distance, with of course the lunar flyby and closest approach planned for flight day 6, which will be tomorrow, Monday, April 6th. Coming up here in about
integrity for photo TV.
Go ahead.
Just an observation with the D5. Through the optical viewfinder at 400 mils, the moon is crisp, absolutely clear, even with a high grazing angle through the windows. But when we are taking pictures, what we then see in the viewfinder is a bit blurrier than what we can see through the viewfinder. I just find that odd. I would have thought the viewfinder and the sensor would pick up the same data, but you can pass that along to those folks.
All right, we got it. Thanks for the call down.
This is Artemis Mission Control. Coming up in just under an hour and 20 minutes from now, the outbound trajectory correction 3 burn will be executed. This burn is expected to be about 18 seconds, and it will use Orion's Orbital Maneuvering System engine, or OMS engine, to ensure the spacecraft stays on target for its journey around the moon. There were 2 previous outbound trajectory correction burns earlier during the mission that were canceled, as it was determined that those burns were not needed, but they will be executing this outbound trajectory 3 burn coming up here shortly.
So earlier, there was a question about from Brady 3201. Could you provide a general overview of important events that will happen between tonight and tomorrow? And somebody in chat noted that the last 2 NASA news conferences have provided a lot of information about that. That's probably the best way to, I would think, to do that, is to let me see if I can find the link to that. and post that in the let's see. So I posted the link to the news conference today. I think there are three presenters, people up on the podium. Dr. Lori Glaze, Rick Henfling, is that right? Or if I got that, let me double check. Yeah, he's the entry flight director. Rick Henfling is the second presenter, and then Dr. Kelsey Young is the third, and she's the lead science officer for the mission. So that third person on the podium, at the desk essentially. So there's obviously the public affairs. Rachel Kraft is the moderator. Pardon me, but that third presentation at the top of the briefing probably has the sort of Reader's Digest or overview of what we're going to see tomorrow. And then at the almost very end of the news conference, they do show a graphic that has some of the times in there. And while we were in that loss of signal period, I was able to kind of scroll back in the live stream and stop on that. But it's towards the very end of that. So if you go towards the end of the news conference and back up a little bit, it's basically on a blue background. But I don't want to get. We're waiting for a burn here and trying to monitor what's going on in real time as well. So. Yeah, I heard that, Jay Pierce. I did hear that. Like I said, I'm wondering. It seems. I don't think. Well, 10 feet per second. Again, maybe that's the threshold. Let's see if we get a burn pad for that. But yeah, I'm not sure. You know what? I'm not even sure. I'm trying to think of like a shortest ohms burn. I'm not sure. I remember talking. We saw the interview with Najeed Moranci this morning, and so I remember talking to her in her office when she was still working inside the Orion program. So this is almost 10 years ago, and I remember her saying that 30 seconds is almost like a bare minimum for the ohms engine, if I recall correctly. But again, it's possible that, again, what applied in 2017 doesn't apply now. But 16 seconds seems. I guess we'll find out. I don't know that you could. I don't know that it would take 16 seconds to do 10 feet per second on the ohms engine. So, like I said, we were already wondering whether this was going to be RCS or aux. Again, I guess out of all of those, Rick Henfling was probably the, if I had to guess, I would probably go with what Rick was saying. Now, Rick had a delta V of 9.9 feet per second. What we heard after the after the briefing was 10.1 feet per second, still in the ballpark. But Rick said that they were going to use the aux engines, which are these 4 sets of 2. So these 4 here and these 4 here. And as opposed to the RCS jets, which are a little harder to see, but those quads are...
Houston Integrity, we're ready for those burn monitor words.
Maybe this?
Hey, Jeremy. Good afternoon. The first thing is that Step 10 is complete. The Plus X flange heaters are on and prop avionics are configured. And then also, assuming that RHC is not currently deployed, that setup was back on Step 7. If you want to refer to that, the bingo for that is TIG minus 45.
Okay, RHC is deployed, and we copy the prop step is complete. Appreciate it.
You are welcome. And just a couple of other general awareness things. We are working on updates for the day, and we will be getting that up to you shortly. We also have the lunar targeting package verification steps in message 3.05.05. That should take about 5 minutes to run on each of the PCDs, but we do need to wedge that in somewhere today so that if it doesn't work, we have a little bit of time to troubleshoot before tomorrow.
Okay, I can work on that actually. So I see it here. It's on this PCD 3.05.05.
Yeah, that's great, Jeremy. And we'd like to get confirmation that run through that procedure and get confirmation that all of the remaining working PCDs are functioning with this.
Okay, that would put us at ease as well. So we'll let you know on that shortly. For the burn pad, we noticed that that the delta V had changed quite a bit. So when did you want to get with us on the burn pad?
We're just planning to do that at the final burn conference, Jeremy.
That's interesting. So I guess we're going to have to hang on to hear that.
That's fine. Just confirm the latest version that we're going to be referencing in that burn conference is UTC of ground generation 95/1400 hours.
Yes, Jeremy, that's correct. And just for context, the manual piloting is what changed that a little bit, the total delta V.
That's also interesting. That is interesting. That.
Well, we'll take that as a compliment.
Wouldn't have meant it any other way.
I'm not so sure about that. But that is interesting that just those training exercises, because those are exercising the prop system, changed this, probably had a significant effect on the burn. And what's interesting is of course they skipped the two previous burns, but then I believe that manual handling exercise was after the time slots that they
This is
put
Artemis
those
Mission
burns
Control
in.
in Houston, Texas. You're currently seeing a live view inside Mission Control here. We were hearing some communication up to the crew, and the individual responsible for communicating directly with the crew is the Capcom or capsule communicator, who is on the left-hand side of your screen.
We're setting up some charging for tomorrow. The alternate PCD charging cable, do you guys have the bandwidth to look that location up for us?
We do. Stand by. Looking for it now.
So JC's asking what's the update for those just joining us. Trying to think of, there was a since the news conference, which was a few hours ago now, they had an expected loss of
the Capcom
forward
currently
link
on console as part of the Orbit 2 team is Mark Reagan, and you can see him there in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, and he is sitting next to the Orbit 2 flight director, who is in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. The flight director on console is Diane Daly. The crew has been discussing a few different activities that they're working through. One of those is verifying that they have the final lunar targeting package available on their PCDs, or portable computing devices, which are basically tablets, that they're able to reference the various procedures and timelines that they're following throughout their mission. They were also discussing an upcoming burn conference, so they will have a conference directly with the flight director and the flight control team here in Mission Control Houston ahead of that outbound trajectory correction burn. That final burn conference is scheduled to take place in about 20 minutes from now.
So there was a part of the ecosystem sort of got into an odd configuration, and when they came out of the expected loss of signal, they had the crew reconfigure the system so that they what had happened as a side effect of a few sort of chain reaction of a few events was that the system was no longer adding oxygen to the cabin atmosphere, and so they had to reconfigure so that they reestablished that sort of auto adjustment. But the crew wasn't necessarily in any danger. It was just not a good configuration to be in, and so they got that fixed right away. And then I'm trying to think of besides that, and the burn. I think that was. I know that we've been wondering about this OTC3 burn, and we just heard a couple of minutes ago that the burns changed a little bit. The magnitude of the burn has increased, and what we just heard the ground calling up was saying that the manual piloting.
Integrity Houston for the alt PCD power cable.
The manual piloting exercise yesterday.
Go ahead, Mark.
Oh, hang on a sec.
Yeah, Jeremy, you can find that in E-Locker, bag number 10 with a brown label. And the Ziploc bag is called 15-volt PCD power cable.
Okay, copy that. Thank you, Mark.
Yep, you bet.
We can see, is it Jackie Mahaffey? I think it's Jackie Mahaffey. We can see her coming on console here. I believe she was the Orbit 2 Capcom yesterday, and I think the day before. Anyway, the manual piloting exercises yesterday, of course, are firing the RCS thrusters, I suppose. Definitely firing the RCS thrusters, but also not exclusively the RCS thrusters, but that was enough. That was enough perturbation to the trajectory to change the parameters of this burn.
Houston, integrity for timeline.
Go ahead.
Mark. Question about an activity depress acoustic monitoring on my timeline at 02 today. I believe since we had aborted the acoustic monitoring the 24-hour yesterday, I didn't see an activity to start this acoustic monitoring.
Hey, Christina, that's going to be a no perform today. And I am on the verge of giving you some other timeline deltas here.
Copy both. Thank you.
So the question about the in chat about issues with receiving emails and rescheduled family conferences. I know I heard about the emails issues with one of the computers, the personal computing devices for the crew, and I think one of them just stopped working, and so they're basically sharing between the four of them. They're sort of sharing those three computers so that they can communicate with their families through that. And then they do have, I don't know that they necessarily delayed the private family conferences, but we have not heard anything about that. So
Integrity Houston with some timeline deltas.
Okay, go ahead. Your timeline deltas, Mark.
Okay. Well, first of all, this just in, the SM prop helium ISO valves are configured, which is in step 12. And then for the timeline deltas, the things that we must perform today are that LTP verification we just talked about a few minutes ago, OTC3 burn ops, the toilet maintenance, the post-OXUT DFTO cabin inspect, AGA readings, and the PMC. How copy on that?
Okay, we copy all that. A couple notes from us. 2 out of 3 of the PCDs for LTP are complete and they're correct. I'll work on the third one next. We talked as a crew and we would like to defer today's PMC. We just don't need it.
Okay, copy that. All right, then a list of suggestions that can be deferred if you would like to.
Sorry, say again, Mark.
Yeah, let me say it more eloquently than I was about to. Everything else can be deferred as you guys desire.
Okay, appreciate it. That's great.
And Jeremy, sorry, one late add to the must be performed. We also need to repower that docking cam today. And then, as bandwidth permits, we would love...
Understood. That makes sense.
All right, cool. As bandwidth permits, we would also like to understand your cabin config too, but as bandwidth permits.
Yeah, we can set up a little tour for you. I think you're going to be really impressed. I mean, we've done a great job here. Looks good up here. It is better than before.
Awesome.
They were talking about a burn conference ahead of this upcoming OTC burn. I'm not sure. I guess we'll find out pretty soon whether it's going to be a private conference or a public conference. Yeah, pardon me. In terms of the Flight Day 5 timeline, JC, they already did that. They did that took up most of the first part of the crew day today. So they've already completed that. I think it's a development flight test objective, as opposed to just a flight test objective. But actually. Considering that there's a possibility that we're going to get to hear the burn conference, I'm gonna take a short break here, and hopefully be back in a couple of minutes. But I'll try and get a couple of things done here. It is getting late, and so this is gonna kind of. I'll probably wrap this up relatively quickly after the burn. And then I have to turn around and be back at the Space Center around 6:30 tomorrow.
This is Artemis Mission Control in Houston, Texas. Again, we were hearing some communication between the crew on board the Orion spacecraft, which is named Integrity, and the team here at Mission Control. They were discussing some of the upcoming activities on the timeline for the remainder of the crew's day. Earlier today, following crew wake up, the crew jumped into a AUX suit, developmental flight test objective. AUX is the Orion Crew Survival System suit, that orange suit you see them wear for dynamic activities, including launch. They donned their suits or put them on and performed several different activities wearing those suits, but they were running behind on the timeline a little bit, so they are working to free up some of the remaining activities and defer activities that aren't critical to take place today. So that is what a majority of that conversation was about. So following the outbound trajectory correction burn, which is scheduled to take place in about 51 minutes from now. Again, it's a very small correction to fine-tune the trajectory of the Orion spacecraft as it makes its final approach and goes around the moon and returns back to Earth. Again, that lunar flyby planned for flight day 6 on Monday, April 6th, and that splashdown will be on Friday, April 10th. Following that burn, they will just have a few remaining activities to be completed for the day, including some standard anomaly gas or AGA readings that they take to measure the gases such as carbon dioxide in the crew cabin. They also have some toilet maintenance activities that they complete every day. And then they will have a post-AUX suit developmental flight test objective cabin inspection that they will complete before they head into their pre-sleep period to wrap up flight day 5.
Okay, so I'll probably be doing this in little phases, but let's see, going back a little bit. So NASA Public Affairs here at the Johnson Space Center is giving media the opportunity to get some stills and take some edited video of some of the control rooms here that are taking part in the mission, basically on a non-interference basis. So tomorrow morning early, we can go over to the science mission operations room, before they get busy, again, on a non-interference basis. So they're going to be really busy, several hours, when we get into the late morning, and then probably for the entire, probably into the night tomorrow. Let's see. Before I get to the Orion low lunar orbit question, let me see if there was anything else. And I did hear, it sounded like the...
Integrity Houston, about 3 minutes away from the Starfield maneuvers.
Okay, we copy that, Mark, and I've got something for you on lunar targeting package when you're ready.
We're ready.
So PCDs 1 and 2, everything worked perfectly. PCD 3, the lunar targeting package, when I double click on it, it tries to open, goes to the web page, and then the little in process circle just keeps going and going. I waited quite a while and it never opened. So then I started the troubleshooting where I created the shortcut and renamed it on the desktop, but I get the same signature when I try to open it, and it's just chewing away with a little satellite going around the moon.
Okay, Jeremy, copy. We're chewing on that. We'll get back to you with more words.
That sounds familiar, except probably not in a
Okay, thanks.
lunar, not when you're trying to connect to your network from the moon, but otherwise it sounds very familiar. So Brady 3201 is asking, is it true that Orion cannot be inserted into a normal low lunar orbit like Apollo because it's not powerful enough? Something like that. So, some of the folks in chat are talking about the different SLS upper stages, but it is compared to the Apollo service module, the Orion service module has much less performance, something almost 1/3 the performance. But then Apollo was over-designed, but then that performance ended up being really useful. So, let's see.
This is Artemis Mission Control. We just heard some communication there between CSA or Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen, currently on board the Orion spacecraft as it makes its way towards the moon. He is working to verify that the final lunar targeting package, which they are referring to as the LTP, is available and uploaded to each of the crew's PCDs or portable computing devices, basically a tablet that the crew is able to use and reference various procedures during their mission. That lunar targeting package will be the primary tool guiding crew observations during the lunar flyby on Flight Day 6, which will take place tomorrow on Monday, April 6th. It consists of two key components, the Lunar Geography Review and the Lunar Targeting Plan. The Lunar Geography Review helps astronauts study major lunar features in advance of the flyby and learn how to orient themselves during the flyby, while the Lunar Targeting Plan provides a detailed timeline of observation targets, background science context, and specific instructions for imaging and making verbal descriptions.
But not the note there that they're having trouble loading it on one of the PCDs. Let me see if I can dug this in. So Jay Pierce notes helpfully here in terms of, again, the Orion performance, that it has enough performance to get, as he says here in chat, it can get in or out, but not both. That's correct. So I think the one thing to add here to some of the notes in chat is that none of the SLS upper stages can really help in that, can help Orion, except that the bigger upper stage, which is which was just canceled, the exploration upper stage, I guess it could have helped, but it was canceled for other reasons, not because it wasn't canceled because it was more helpful. It was canceled because it's very late. But anyway, the EUS would have allowed another 10 to 15 metric ton module or spacecraft or logistics module to be taken with Orion. You could use that capability to take a transfer stage that would help Orion get down to low lunar orbit. So I guess in that respect, that could have helped. But for instance, if the standard plan for EOS was just to take, again, like a logistics module or one of the gateway modules with Orion, and so those don't help Orion get down to low lunar orbit and get out. So the current upper stage definitely does not have the extra performance to do that. It can only send Orion to the moon, and then the new upper stage that they're trying to make work, and they just started doing the studies on that, probably has more performance, but is still not going to be enough to help Orion with that. And so they will have to get Orion to low lunar orbit some other way, and that may also involve a different launcher than SLS. So as I continue catching up, thanks to Frank Licks for the super chat. So let me see if I can. That was my. So Mediocre Engineering is asking, with the Centaur 5, would SLS have more daytime launch opportunities? That was kind of my. I was speculating that, and I was trying to ask that question, but I guess I was trying to ask that question last Monday, but I think. But I couldn't. I think the.
Integrity Houston, you ready for the burn conference, Jeremy?
Ooh, I'm going to have to try and sneak this in. I think they're just not ready to talk about Centaur 5 in any detail yet.
1 minute, please.
Well,
Raj.
Maybe we will. So maybe we're going to hear the burn conference publicly. That would be some. And I'm not sure if we're going to find out the mystery, which mystery engine is going to be used here. We'll find out. So right as I say that, my chat window blows up. I think that's just a coincidence. There's only if the delta V is on the order of 10 feet per second, I'm not sure. That might be beyond the threshold of, or at least the thresholds I heard. I would be a little. I'm not sure that they would do it on RCS at this point. I wonder if I don't think I have, like, some of these things, some of these questions. Because I vaguely remember asking this question at some point, but it's been a long time. I wonder if I have that. I doubt it. It's like, it's probably some pre-COVID question.
Integrity is ready for the burn conference.
All right. As we discussed earlier, the UTC of ground generation was 95-14 even. And the first delta is delta V total.
Check.
Which is 10.4.
Oh boy, now it's up to 10.4. So they're talking about dispersions. It sounds like the manual piloting thing is, the dispersions are growing.
TIGO is 19 seconds. latitude should be yaw pitch roll 312, 315, 75. And delta V XYZ should be 4.7, minus 5.3, 7.6. How copy so far?
We copy all.
Okay. No deltas in the burn execution steps. And then finally, in the burn notes, one delta, which is that we have already manually pressurized the fuel tank to 290 psia, and pressurization will still be active during the burn config segment. The burn will be performed in blowdown.
Copy.
Any questions for us?
Mark, to be sure we understand your last, we understand you said it is pressurized now and that we will be in blowdown. Is that a good read?
Yes, that's a good read back.
Hey, Mark, in your first statement, we thought we heard you say it would be pressurized during the burn, which doesn't match our understanding of blowdown, but maybe we either misheard or you said like it would be pressurized now but not during the burn.
We did pressurize it a couple of hours before TIG, and it will still be active.
Mark, we're scratching our heads a little bit on what you mean about it will still be active and marrying that up with being in blowdown. Our understanding of blowdown is that we would not have active pressurization, but we would use the existing pressurization.
Okay, sorry, yeah, I've made it more confusing than it had to be. That's a good understanding. The pressurization will still be active during burn config segment, and the burn will be performed in blowdown. Does that make more sense?
Thanks, Mark. That makes a lot more sense. So at some point during burn config segment through the start of the burn, the active pressurization will be turned off.
Yeah, that was a good explanation actually by Christina right there.
Yes, that'll happen when we transition at TIG minus 5 minutes.
Perfect. All understood on board. Thanks for going through that with us.
Of course.
So yeah, that actually...
I also have some troubleshooting steps on that LTP that wasn't working properly on PCD3 when it's a good time for somebody.
Yeah, you can go ahead and send that now, Mark.
Okay. You can pull up procedure 36.1.3, which is Lunar Targeting Package User Guide. And you can execute step 6.1.2, which clears the cache, and then go back and try that message 3.05.05 again.
That sounds familiar. It's a lot more familiar than what they're talking about with.
Okay, just give me the procedure. I got it was step 6.1.2, but say again the procedure number.
It's 36.1.3, Lunar Targeting Package User Guide.
Okay, I'll put that in work.
All right, thank you.
So for that, clear the browser cache and then try it again. But that's interesting. So it's interesting because they have for the blowdown, they're gonna do the burn in blowdown. So they're basically going to they have active pressure regulation, but they're going to, I don't know if they're going to inhibit it but they're going to do the burn without that. And I almost wonder if I wonder if that's as a test, or I mean they did ground tests. They did ground test blowdown tests. So I remember when they were testing the propulsion qualification module out at White Sands, they didn't actually have the pressure control assemblies, the regulators originally, and so that's all they could do, which was to pressurize the tanks up to a high pressure, and then you have all that high pressure at the top of the tank, and when you open the valves to let the propellant at the bottom of the tank go into the combustion chamber, it still works.
TLT and Orb Guide converged. We're assessing the onboard solution.
They did converge, and we are assessing versus the burn pad now. So far, so good.
Copy.
And so they can keep doing burns with the different engines, either RCS, aux, or ohms, if the tanks have enough pressure, and if there's some minimum amount of ullage pressure, which is head pressure basically on the tanks, and they're of course way above that as it is, but this might actually be it's not that 10 feet per second ish is not much compared to the TLI burn or the maybe even, I wonder what the perigee raise burn delta V was. I think it was more than that, but still, they don't have that many. This might be the second to last burn that they do, and then the last one being the RTC3.
Houston Integrity confirming your go-no-go for this burn.
We are about to put that in work. Stand by.
That's a hard question, I guess. So be ready or Breddy 3201, just because it's like it's hard. I guess not everybody, but folks may have their favorite tool, or so for instance, as Mr. Can't Stop the Robot says,
Integrity Houston,
Kerbal.
MCC has pulled go for the burn.
Integrity copies.
You know, that it could be that might not be a bad place to start, or you know, you might go to a general reference
this is
like
Artemis Mission Control
Wikipedia.
in Houston, Texas. We just heard confirmation there that the team here in Mission Control has pulled go for the upcoming outbound trajectory correction burn 3. This burn expected to take place in about 26 minutes from now, and it will be an approximately 19-second burn using the auxiliary engines on the Orion spacecraft.
Okay.
There were previously 2 other outbound trajectory correction burns on flight days 3 and 4 that ended up being canceled as it was determined they were no longer needed due to the accuracy of the trans-lunar injection burn on flight day 2. However, the team decided to go ahead and execute this outbound trajectory correction burn 3 today on flight day 5 to ensure an accurate trajectory as the spacecraft begins to make its way around the moon and back to Earth to minimize further larger trajectory corrections that may be needed on the return journey.
Let's see, who was asking before? So that's also a good, that I'd say again that the question about where to start is, I think we all probably have, although I'm kind of blanking myself. So I think the suggestions in chat are those are all good. What was the other? Jay Pierce was asking, the main purpose for this burn is the main purpose for this burn to make sure they land off the coast of San Diego. I guess it's a couple of steps beyond that, but it's kind of like what the public affairs commentator was just talking about, because they want to refine their trajectory ahead of the flyby, because the moon's going to give the spacecraft a gravity assist, and they probably want this to be as accurate as possible at the point of the gravity assist, or at the time of the gravity assist, which will, as she was saying, will reduce the amount of errors in the gravity assist and reduce the amount of additional trajectory corrections, or at least reduce the magnitude of the trajectory corrections that they'll need to do on the return leg of the flight. And I don't know if JC's still around, but I think JC was the one who was talking about all of the different. But I think we now know. I think we got a confirmation that it is using the aux engines now. I think. I lost it. Okay. So Richard asks, if they are on the dark side, how will there be enough light to take pictures? Some people still like to use the light and the dark side, but not typically. What is often used to make it easier to visualize is more near side and far side. So the
integrity for the LTP.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
Okay, I cleared the cache as per the procedure. Then I tried to open the original LTP link, and I got the same signature as before. So I cleared the cache again, and then I opened the new LTP link that I created myself, and I get the same signature.
Uh-oh.
Okay, back to head scratching here.
Exactly. So clearing the cache didn't fix it. So the far side does get light, and in fact the crew can see, because Orion is so close to the moon now. They're seeing something that we can't see from Earth, which is they can see some of the far side in sunlight. So that's the thing is, again, the far side sees 2 weeks of light just like the near side. It's just that we only see the near side lit from where we are. So anyway, they will see, because of when Artemis II launched, they're going to see some of the near side and some of the far side. And so they will see half of the moon, just like here. One half is in sunlight and one half is not. So when they swing around the moon, eventually they're going to see an eclipse of the sun by the moon. And so, of course, since that happens, that you would be seeing a dark. You would not be seeing that. That is the night side of the moon from their point of view, since it's an eclipse. So I don't think it sounds like I'm not sure. We're talking about the lunar targeting package. They're trying to bring that up on the third of the 3 still working tablets. I'm not sure that it certainly would have an impact in terms of just convenience for the flyby tomorrow. But they may still be able to use the tablet for other things. Now, having said that, this is a big deal for them to have all of their software tools available to them on multiple, on as many of those tablets as they can. So there may be other ways to work around this. They may have I don't know if those are the only computing devices that they have on board. But I also would imagine that this is the kind of thing that the simulation team would throw at them.
Integrity Houston, tank pressures are good for the burn.
Integrity.
And so, if I think what the Capcom said earlier is they're going to go in terms of the pressure regulation. They're going to. It may just be for the oxidizer tanks, but they're going to. They're still maintaining active pressure on the tanks up until TIG -5, so 5 minutes before ignition, and then they will stop, and they will stop maintaining active pressure, use the existing head pressure in the tanks, also called ullage pressure, and essentially doing that in blowdown. But that is certainly enough for a 19-second aux burn. And there's an animation of what the flyby will look like tomorrow. It's sped up. It's the several hours are sped up into 1 minute. I wonder if it's on the images.nasa.gov website, but it's probably also on a NASA, like a NASA Artemis II.
Houston, our email sync is complete. All inboxes are unlocked.
So if you're interested, Richard, if you're interested in looking for that, but I don't think they did not provide any. They did not provide any animations that would be kind of interesting, which is to call out where, to make it easier for us to visualize where the near side is and where the far side is, just for us to visualize how much of what the crew is seeing, and kind of where that, it wouldn't be the Terminator because that's different. That's where the sun is, but
Integrity Houston, solar arrays are in position for the burn.
I wonder if am I
Integrity.
Is my display frozen? Oops, I keep going to the wrong window.
This is Artemis Mission Control. We've heard a couple of call-ups from the ground here in Mission Control ahead of the upcoming outbound trajectory correction 3 burn, which is planned for about 16 minutes from now. One of the first call-outs was in regards to the propellant tank pressurization, confirming that service module tank pressure is in the proper condition for the upcoming burn, and then also confirming that the solar array wings on the Orion spacecraft are in the correct orientation to support the upcoming burn. Again, this burn is expected to last about 19 seconds using the auxiliary pulse-X engines on the Orion spacecraft service module. The flight control position here in Mission Control Houston, responsible for the solar wing specifically, and that most recent call out is MPO, which is the mechanical and power officer. They are responsible for the electrical power generation, the solar arrays, the array rotation mechanisms, and power distribution systems on board the Orion spacecraft.
The question from Hank about where the 23,000 miles per hour comes into play, not just at escaping Earth. Okay. I was wondering about that because it seems like the spacecraft is still...
Integrity Houston, maneuver to burn attitude starting in about 3 minutes.
See, I was wondering about that because the spacecraft is still in tail to sun attitude right at the moment. So they're basically staying in that attitude as long as possible. But the highest velocity of the mission, I think, actually will be at entry interface at the very end of the mission when the spacecraft, right before this, well, basically when the spacecraft encounters the Earth's atmosphere. But the speed at when the spacecraft was conducting the trans-lunar injection burn, that was also very high velocity relative to Earth anyway. So thanks for joining the channel, Richard. Definitely appreciate the support. And so in terms of that high velocity, if I was at the Space Center, and so I didn't get a chance to watch this particular display as a spacecraft approached Earth again on that high Earth orbit. But that I'll have to go back and and watch a little bit of that or try and find it, because it's interesting of how the acceleration that's going on there. But we'll see something similar on Friday when the spacecraft is accelerating, and so the velocity's increasing, and that will be the thing is that we'll probably also be getting live video, and so when we get live video, we won't be watching this screen. But I think part of the reason that we're not necessarily getting video is because they're using they're using the bandwidth for the burn data to get, to have as much data on the health of the propulsion systems and spacecraft systems during the burn. No, I'm trying to remember it. I wonder if I can. Let me see if I can. That might be relatively quick to fetch. Oh, nope, wrong thing. Okay, so we're seeing the spacecraft maneuver to the burn attitude now. The high altitude jump, I think the record for the high altitude jump is in the neighborhood of about 40 kilometers or 25 miles altitude. So that's still it's certainly well above the survivable atmosphere, but it's also well below like the Kármán line, which is approximately 100 kilometers. So yeah, it's still well above or well below the well below orbital altitudes. Well, this will be interesting. If this is we'll have to see when the spacecraft is in burn attitude. But if this was the attitude, it would actually be kind of hard to tell Although 19 seconds is a relatively long burn even for the aux engines, but I'm not sure that they're in burn attitude yet. They were maneuvering to burn attitude. We're still a few minutes away from maybe about 5 minutes away from the burn.
Integrity Houston, we're in burn attitude.
Okay, they're pretty close then.
We see the same.
This is Artemis Mission Control in Houston, Texas. We just heard that confirmation called up to the crew on board the Orion spacecraft that the spacecraft has maneuvered to the correct burn attitude in preparation for the upcoming outbound trajectory correction 3 burn scheduled to take place in about 5 minutes from now.
That's a hard question, Hank, because asking about will it be I mean maybe another way of putting it is, will it be affordable for more people to take those short suborbital trips into space? Because for example, the rocket that those folks took, that service has been suspended. So even those people who are relatively affluent, rich, those rides have been they're not offering those rides anymore. So even for the right now, I mean, there are other rides, like for instance the SpaceX Dragon, but I don't know how long those are. I think it will have to be, you'd have to see something like what SpaceX is advertising for Starship, if they really were flying on like an airliner type schedule, then maybe that would become affordable for a broader, for more people. But SpaceX still has a lot of work to get there. Okay, so now we're getting a live view. This is a view looking from, I believe this is
Artemis Mission Control in Houston, Texas. You're now seeing a live view of the Orion spacecraft, the exterior of the spacecraft, as we are about 2 minutes out from the upcoming outbound trajectory correction 3 burn. That burn is expected to last about 19 seconds, taking place around 10:03 p.m. Central, 11:03 p.m. Eastern Time. This burn will fine-tune the trajectory of the Orion spacecraft to ensure it stays on target for its journey around the moon and back.
So this camera is, I believe this is the camera on the crew module adapter that faces aft. You can see one of the groups of RCS thrusters, but they're not. You might see one of those fire to maintain the burn attitude, but the burn translational part of the burn is using the 8 auxiliary engines, and so maybe we will see a flash at ignition of those engines, and then it is possible that we see maybe even these particular RCS, 1 or 2 of these RCS jets firing to maintain attitude, or maybe we'll see if the burn needs to be trimmed at all. But this is kind of interesting. It'll be interesting to see what we can see here.
This is Artemis Mission Control. We are about 30 seconds away from the time of ignition for the outbound trajectory correction burn. That is when the auxiliary thrusters on the Orion spacecraft service module will begin firing to complete the outbound trajectory correction burn and fine-tune its trajectory. And we have confirmation that that outbound trajectory correction burn is now underway.
Well, I guess not. Really don't see anything.
And we now have confirmation that that burn has completed. Again, that was an approximately 19-second burn using the auxiliary thrusters on the Orion spacecraft service module. That burn completed at 10:03 p.m. Central Time, 11:03 p.m. Eastern Time, to further fine-tune the Orion spacecraft's trajectory as it continues to make its way around the moon, and it was a good burn.
Integrity Houston, good burn. We are assessing the details.
Good news, and we see the same. Thanks, Mark.
Still interesting because, I mean, I did not see any. I didn't see any. I didn't see any. Even any movement from the solar arrays, so it's interesting that the aux engines are that gentle. Okay, I'd have to maybe if I sped up if I look at that sped up, it'll be easier to see. The solar array. I'm not sure if the cameras they might point the cameras away from the engines to avoid. No, I don't know. I think we have seen some. I think we saw a burn on Artemis I. So I'm not sure why they didn't show it to us from a different angle.
Your analysis, we would like to ask you to take over on step 23. We'll handle the RHC and get on with some other activities in our timeline.
All right, you got it.
Thank you. Great to finally do a burn.
I know. A nice, beautiful little burn, too. Be advised, we are maneuvering for opportunistic science, and you would need to configure your D5 and Z9 cameras for that, like yesterday.
See, I would have figured that they were going back.
We are tracking and looking forward to it very much. We had a gorgeous view of a very big moon right out of window 2 during that burn. Well, right before the burn, before we maneuvered. It was awesome.
And looks like we'll be back at window 2 for this as well. And also, I have another little troubleshooting step for that.
Thanks for that heads up.
Yeah, you're welcome. Another troubleshooting step for that lunar targeting package when someone has a chance to copy.
They should be moving at least back towards tail to sun, but that may still keep the moon in window 2.
Send me the troubleshooting steps there, Mark.
Okay, Jeremy. Back to that same step, 6.1.2. Do you still have that procedure that was in?
I do. It's just clearing the cache, and I understand it now.
Yeah. This time we're going to, on Media 14, which is the one at the bottom of that step, we are going to change that time range for all time. And in addition to the cached images and files that you see already checked in that procedure, we're going to check cookies and other data, and then clear it, and then back to message 30505 and try again.
Copy that. Just so you know, I did all time previously, but I didn't do the cookies and other data, so that's new. So I'll try that. Well, I just did it, and I'll see what happens. And then which LTP do you want me to try to open first? The one that was already there originally, or do you want the one that I created the new shortcut for on the desktop?
Checking. Jeremy, try the original shortcut first.
Didn't work. Hooray! That fixed it.
All right.
All right.
So they just needed to do a more thorough clearing of the cache.
Okay, Mark, and I did the other two steps too, checking the 2 OneNote actions, and they're both good on this PCD now, so we're all set.
That is awesome. Thanks, Jeremy.
This is Artemis Mission Control. About 7 minutes ago, the Orion spacecraft executed the outbound trajectory correction 3 burn to fine-tune the trajectory of the Orion spacecraft as it continues to make its way around the moon, with that lunar flyby planned for tomorrow on flight day 6. Now that outbound trajectory correction burn is complete, teams will be maneuvering the Orion spacecraft into an attitude to be able to capture some opportunistic imaging of the moon.
So Trevor's asking about the live stream schedule tomorrow, and I'm going to have to figure that out, I think, after I get back from the Space Center in the morning. But I don't know that I'm going to be doing a lot more back and forth to the Space Center tomorrow. There are no briefings planned tomorrow because the flyby is going to be going on through, into the evening. So, I should be able to just watch the flyby here on the live stream. Maybe not all the way through, but most of the way through. And so I guess right now I'm thinking it's just going to be a single a single stream. So it may start a little later after crew wake up tomorrow. I'll kind of see where things are after I get back from the Space Center in the morning. That'll still be before crew wake up. So, but I'll just need to see. I'll kind of need to look at the timeline tomorrow. But I'm going to go ahead and there's, I think, I forget what the maximum is, if it's 11 hours or I don't anticipate doing that. I don't think it's going to be necessary, but instead of what I did a couple of days ago and what I did today, I think this is going to be, it's just going to be, I'll just be for more or less in one place tomorrow. If I need to take, just like everybody, I'm sure we're all taking breaks at one time or another, but they won't be 2 hours or they won't be that long. They'll be, 5 minutes, 10 minutes or something like that tomorrow. But I'm going to go ahead and sign off the stream here. So it looks like they had a good outbound trajectory correction burn, and they will be crossing the lunar sphere of influence in about less than an hour and a half from now. But I need to get up and be ready. Get up and be ready to go to the Space Center in a little while. So
integrity for enabled flush caution.
Yeah, go ahead.
We just got an enabled caution dump required.
All right, we see that as well, and we are about to put a wastewater dump in place and get that going shortly.
Okay, sounds good. And do you have the bandwidth for an HHP quick cabin view of the Eagles Wall for the post DFTO cleanup?
That's interesting.
We are checking, and just to make sure we're on the same page, so after this use, stand down from toilet ops until we get that dump done and let you know.
Understood.
we're tomorrow.
Yes, we can take the HHP cam.
So it sounds like we're gonna go inside. Although again, the camera might be focused on the Ecolus wall, which is where a lot of that equipment is. But tomorrow morning we're gonna get a chance to go. I don't know if we're gonna.
Mark, just to be 100% certain, secondary dumps are still okay, correct?
Yes, secondary dumps are still okay.
We're going to get a chance to go over to the Science Mission Operations Room, which is in Building 36. At least that's my understanding. But again, I don't know whether we're going to be going into the room or it's going to be something on a non-interference basis with the work that they're going to be doing tomorrow. That's why we're going relatively early. Although now that I think of it, there are a couple of other groups going in there. Pardon me, later. So, but those slots, those more reasonable slots were already taken. But that's fine. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up the stream here. If you want to continue to follow, again, I'm basically I'm showing the NASA live stream here and just trying to add some additional color on top of all the informative explanations that they're giving, and then of course the interesting air to ground, maybe even a little bit more interesting this evening. Some of the things that happened here. Got actually kind of an interesting we got a nice description of what blowdown is too. But if you want to watch the NASA coverage, you can go to the NASA's YouTube channel, or there are other organizations that are doing that are carrying different feeds of the Artemis II mission. And I'll come back tomorrow, to cover the lunar flyby here. As I said a few minutes back, I still need to figure out exactly what the schedule is. But I'm at least thinking to just do a single live stream, and I'll probably be here in Hotel Central, so to speak, for most of the day, other than to take a break from time to time for the types of things we all take a few minutes breaks for. But I'm going to go ahead and sign off the stream. Thanks again to everybody who tuned in. Thanks to the old members of the channel, the new members of the channel. Thanks to the folks that contributed super chats. If you like this live stream, like it, and I appreciate that. And I will see you hopefully tomorrow.